that your president is caught up in, along with his Secretary of State, current one John Kerry, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. But yet they say that you should, say your Pledge of Allegiance, that you should go overseas and die for your country. But when you're killed, your country don't want you to even know what happened. Now, if they do that with an ambassador, what about all these bodies of young men and young women that's being flown back to Dover Air Force Base that you and the media, which is another scandal, they want your phone logs and phone calls from the AP to everybody else, to Fox and everybody else right now. They want your phone records. So they're going back to the dark ages. They're going back to the dark times. They're going back to days of the what do we call it? The red squads, the death squads and everything else, man. But this is in the White House from the highest level of government in this country right now, that you have Benghazi Gate. You have, of course, as I said before, the scandal regarding, again, using tactics to go after those in the news media. It ain't just Julian Assange, it's just not Bradley Manning, but those in the news media that dare to speak out and tell the truth regarding the policies that are emanating from the highest levels of government in this country. And now on top of that, you have the IRS scandal, where the IRS job is supposed to collect taxes, but they, of course, are putting in their crosshairs these 503s, these 504s, these tax-exempt organizations. Some of them that they've gone after have been the Tea Party and others. But if they're going after them now, they've gone after black organizations. When you go back and read the church committee reports in terms of how Nixon used the IRS then and how the Obama administration is using the IRS today toward, again, groups that are critical of his policies. And to top that off, if you thought there was the IRS scandal, you have, of course, the sex in the military abuse toward women and men. The two men at the highest level of the military that are supposed to oversee the policies to stop the, sexual abuse toward women are now themselves being charged with sexual abuse. This is what we see going on in Washington, D.C., not to mention, of course, Operation Fast and Furious, in which the government has admitted, but they concealed that through, of course, secrets and through saying that this was about national security, that you had the government of the United States, the executive branch, one of their offices, the ATF, which is, of course, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, that they were found guilty of running guns into Mexico, of running a gun operation into Mexico, which led to the death of men, women, and children. And no one has been indicted. No one was even fired, I believe. But no one was indicted. No one was even fired with this scandal. And so we see these scandals and others that are emanating and swirling around your president of the United States. And the way you know that there's a scandal, that he couldn't wait to have his get out of town card and come to Baltimore last Friday. He couldn't wait to get on one of his convoys while they're telling you that you should go green. You should conserve your gas. You should go to a smart car. Or you should go to a zip car. But he's riding around town in them big ass SUVs, man. Riding around the city and the region in them big SUVs, them gas guzzlers. And y'all don't see through that trick by now? Same thing with your governor. Same thing with your mayor. Same thing with the rest of them. Just pushing this green economy, which was, of course, a scandal that came from the Rockefellers and the Rockefeller Foundation. But I'll get into that in a few moments. But as we're looking at, of course, these scandals that are worse than Watergate, worse than the Iran-Contra Gate, when, of course, we found out that there was a government within the government regarding, again, the sales of narcotics, the sales of arms to the Contras with Ali North and, of course, the rest of those who are now a part of this project for the new American century. Well, that's the same thing that we found out with Benghazi, that they were taking nuclear weapons, we'll say alleged, and arming Al-Qaeda. As I've said before, Al-Qaeda works for Al-Qaeda, if you haven't figured that out by now. Al-Qaeda works for Al-Qaeda. And they were arming them. And, of course, they found out that those nuclear weapons were going to Syrian rebels. When they tell you they don't have money for you for your welfare check, Social Security check, unemployment check, but they got over $130 million, and it's now coming out that it will be $500 million that will go toward the Syrian rebels to destabilize the sovereign elected country and president, which is violating international law. But again, So you have, again, Benghazi Gate. You got the IRS Gate. You got the Operation Fast and Furious and Operation Wide Receiver Gate. You have now the Sexual Military Abuse Gate in terms of the sex in the military. And, of course, don't forget the Secret Service Gate. Don't forget the Secret Service Gate that took place down there in Colombia when, of course, you had the Bordello Fellows that was supposed to be guarding the President of the United States' car. But they was up in the room. They was up in the room with, of course, you remember, the Bordellos. But let's keep going here, because clearly, as we've seen these scandals swirling around your president, that he couldn't wait to get out of town. He was kind of like stuck between a Barack and a hard place, man. Not a rock in a hard place, but a Barack in a hard place. So you now have a runaway government, a secret government, and you see tales from the dark side, of course, emanating out of the highest offices and the highest, again, seats in power in this country right now, at a time when Americans are trying to live off of less, when Americans are paying more and taking home less right now, when many are paying just to pay back the city government, the state government, and now the federal government, and they continue to fleece you as well. But now, your president, when he gets in these positions, when he finds himself stuck between a rock and a hard place, then what do he normally do? You know this is Memorial Day weekend, and you know Father's Day gets close by, because that's the only time your president will come out and chastise black men, will come out and beat down black men, kind of like James Brown, mama, give me that whipping stick. Mama, give me that whipping stick or that licking stick. And he can't wait to beat down on you because of them white guys and them straight ties and them ugly Brooks Brothers suits beating the hell out of him down there in Washington, D.C. So he was at Morehouse College the other day on the 50th anniversary of Brown versus the Board of Education. He couldn't use that as an opportunity to talk about how far blacks have come due to those landmark decisions and why we must fight to keep those decisions in place, because we still got separate and unequal existing in this country right now. He didn't use that as an opportunity to champion Malcolm X, who we would have been celebrating the next day, the birthday of Malcolm X. No, he didn't use it for the opportunity to teach you, black man, or to reach to your black man, but he used it as an opportunity to beat you down once again, black man, to tell you don't blame the white man. Don't blame those in society. As the living legend Baba Dick Gregory has often said, and I've often said, how come when our turn comes, they won't flip the script, man? You think he would go to some Netanyahu and members of the Jewish community and tell them don't blame the Germans for what they did to them? You think they would go over to Israel and tell them don't blame the Palestinians, don't blame all them Arabs in the Middle East for what they've done to you? You think he would go to the Arabs after they've had their Arab Spring and tell them don't blame their government for what they've done to them when they supported the Arab Spring and sponsored the Arab Spring, meaning agencies within this government? But yet, when it comes to you as young black men down on the college campus doing the right thing, and you can't get a leg up, but they can come over here, and I'm talking about some of these Arabs now. I'm talking about the members of the Zionist elements of the state of Israel, that they can come over here, man. They can get a hand out, they can get a hand up, and they can get some hand wipes if they need it, man. They can get some hand wipes if they need it. You can't even get that, black man. So again, man, you treat it like you handicapped while they come over here, get a hand up, hand out, and some hand wipes if they need it. To wipe that blood off their hands. Wipe that blood off their hands. Well, they take Al-Qaeda and put them up in apartment buildings. Put them in 7-Elevens. Put them in rural farms. Put them behind cabs, man. Some of them. If it don't apply, let it fly. But you know what I'm talking about. They give them liquor stores. And you've been over here all this time. You can't get a 7-Eleven, can't get a gas station, can't get a cab, can't run a hotel, a motel, a 7-Eleven, a 6-star, anything else. But yet your president will tell you and beat you down and tell you stop blaming somebody for you being in the condition that you in, man. That you tell you that what's that old saying like say, rising tide will lift all boats. No, man. Well, he got more leaks than the Titanic coming out of his boat right now. He got more leaks than the Titanic coming out of his boats right now when you look at what's going on down in Washington, D.C. But I know some of you just delirious for him, man. You delirious for him when they can't look out for you and look out for your needs and look out, of course, for your rights in this country right now. So on an opportunity on the day that we should have been celebrating this past Friday, the 50th anniversary of Brown versus the Board, you would have thought your president would have used that as an opportunity to teach the people there at Morehouse College. at Morehouse College, but no, use it as an opportunity to beat you down once again. And I'm sure with Father's Day coming, he gonna get him an invite to a black church, man. He gonna get him an invite to a black church. And he gonna tell you that, of course, you should not blame others for your condition and your plight in terms of where you are right now. The most loyal constituency to the Democratic Party, the most loyal constituency to President Obama. Yeah, he'll never go to some Italians, some Greeks, some Jews, some Armenians, some Asians, some Arabs, and tell them, stop blaming others for your plight. But he'll come to you, and then you'll get some Negroes get on the radio and want to parrot what he said. You say, that's right, Mr. President. I mean, when would some of them stand up and say, no, you're wrong, Mr. President. You need to grow up. You need to grow up in terms of, again, blaming the victims as opposed to talking about how we need the Supreme Court, how we need the Supreme Court to uphold those laws, and we need to go back and examine Brown versus Board of Education and see if it was actually implemented. And I would, of course, say to you that it has not been implemented. This is why you still see two countries, one black, one white, two societies, one black, one white. That's why you see the income gap where it is between black and white today. This is why you still see most of the schools being closed where? In the inner cities, in the urban cities, in the black communities. If I can keep it real. But again, we're talking about these scandals around your president, man. Around your president. And when you had 33 people survive the Benghazi scandal, as I said, and they're in Walter Reed Hospital, but they're incommunicato. And if I know that, the Democrats know it, the Republicans know it, how come they don't want that information to come out? If they really care about soldiers and those that go overseas and put their lives on the line. But let me talk about this other Supreme Court case. Let me talk about this other Supreme Court case that I didn't get a chance to talk about last week, man. But we're talking about scandals. We're talking about scandals, man. No, not Olivia and Fritz for some of you sisters, or Fitz. I mean, I know it makes some of you brothers have a fit because it's a modern day Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemingway, or whatever her name is. You know what I'm talking about, man. You know what I'm talking about. And I'm not talking about Cyrus. I'm not talking about Cyrus, that gender bender down there. But I'm talking about, again, the scandals that are in and emanating. The scandals and the vandals that are in Washington, D.C., man. And it seems like every day, every week, there's a new leak that's coming out. That may sink that ship down there. And your president clearly is a dead man walking, that he can't get no legislation passed, except for when they decide they want to cut social programs. Then they can do some dirty dancing, cut a deal with the Republicans and the Blue Dog Democrats to cut you out. But again, let me talk about this other scandal that I want to get into. And that involves this, again, Council on Foreign Relations, this globalist, and not the Tomb Raider, but the Womb Raider. The Womb Raider and Angelina Jolie. And Brangelina, as some of you sisters like to call her. Because you don't want to romanticize this white woman. And I'm talking to black women, brown women, red women, yellow women, and common decent white women. That Angelina Jolie is part of the bigger plan and a bigger scheme to bring about depopulation from your womb to the tomb. Depopulation from Africa to Asia to other parts of the world right now. That she and her husband, Brad Pitt, I know you think she's doing something good. But she came out last week and said that supposedly, allegedly, that she had a double mastectomy. And some of you sisters and other women, you dumb enough to follow, you gonna run around and get a double mastectomy. Meaning you breastless now, like some boneless chicken. You going breastless now. I'm not talking about those that are legitimately suffering from cancer and had to have that painful decision to make. But I'm talking about those that want to keep up with the Joneses or keep up with the Jolinas, if I can keep it real. But she's part of a psych operation that they're using on your head. And maybe some of you had a double lobotomy performed on you last week. Maybe some of you going to go out and get a double bilateral amputee before you get PVD, if you know what I mean, peripheral vascular disease. Listen to Angelina Jolie, man. But if you don't know about Angelina Jolie ties to the Council on Foreign Relations, to the globalists, and to this pharmaceutical company called Myrad, M-Y-R-A-I-D. And Myrad is like the Monsantos. It's like the Monsantos of DNA, that they want to have a patent on every human gene. Therefore, if you impregnate your wife, they're saying you got to pay them because that's their seed. That's their DNA that they have a patent on. And they intend to use Angelina Jolie and this decision that's getting ready to go before the Supreme Court in a few days. Now, most news media know this, but yet they didn't